Hi all, my name is Davis and welcome back to my channel where I cover all things tech. And today I am going to announce something that might indeed shock you. Depending on what videos of mine that you've seen in the past, you might know me as being a little bit either of an Apple fanatic or an absolutely tragic Palm fanboy. And that means that I haven't really had a lot of experience with any Android phones in the past. Well, apart from this one perhaps, but it doesn't really count, does it? So that's why I'm happy to announce that Motorola Australia decided that they needed to change that by sending me their new Edge 20 5G Android smartphone. And this is the phone that I've been using over the past fortnight. Is it possible for an iPhone user to switch to Android? Would one even want to switch to Android after using an iPhone? And how does using a $700 Edge 20 feel after using a $2,200 iPhone? Spoiler alert, the Edge 20 actually fares remarkably well. During my test period, I've actually discovered that I prefer the Motorola and the Android experience in a number of ways. But before I tell you why I'm so impressed with the Edge 20, please smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Are you thinking of getting a Motorola? If you are, then please comment all of your questions below and I'll be sure to get around to answering as many of them as I can. Firstly, let's take a quick look at the box and see what your 700 Australian dollars gets you. And let me just add that $700 is a very small amount to spend on a high-end smartphone in 2021. A flagship iPhone or Samsung Galaxy can set you back well over 3 times that amount. And with that in mind, we can just start to appreciate the incredible value that Motorola really managed to squeeze in here. Just looking at the box, we can see that it's in this lovely navy color and there's silver highlights and it all feels very premium. On the front, it states that it's got both 5G and also Ready for, which is a fun new feature that we'll get to just a little bit later. And I feel that this box is quite similar to some of the recent iPhones. And as we know, they don't come with many accessories at all, in fact. In fact, some of them don't even come with a charging brick, which makes it all the more impressive. The Edge 20 not only comes with, oh my God, it comes with a clear case, something that Apple might charge, I don't know, close to $100 for. But once we take away this little section over here, we can see that Motorola has included not only a fast charger, but there is also a USB-C cable, a USB-C to 3.5mm headphone adapter, and also a pair of wired earphones. By 2021 standards, this is a very, very impressive array of accessories. And now let's get to the smartphone itself that I've hastily reapplied the screen protector on. Let's peel that off and pretend it's the first time I'm doing that. 3, 2, 1. Wow, that's almost as satisfying as it was the first time around. And let's just have a quick look at the case as well. So it's just a clear silicone case and it works quite well. It's quite grippy and it's quite thin. But for the sake of this review, let's just get rid of it for now. And here is the phone itself. And I would say that it is rather pretty. On the front is quite possibly the most impressive part of the phone itself, and it is the screen. Not only is it a very sizable 6.7 inches in size with a hole punch instead of the more typical notch on top, but it's a full HD OLED panel that refreshes at a pretty incredible 144 Hz, which is not only slightly more than the iPhone 13 Pro, but it's also what you typically see on a gaming phone that usually costs way more. Not only that, but the touch panel also samples at 576 Hz, so that it picks up all of your touch inputs with remarkable responsiveness, and that's something that you can really genuinely feel. The screen is also compatible with HDR10 content and has the potential to reach a peak of over 650 nits, so it's both bright enough for outdoor use and also for HDR to actually be noticeable. With a wide P3 color gamut, the colors are also very accurate too. So in all, this is a pretty excellent display and it rivals the screens found on phones that cost a lot more. Now that we've seen the screen, let's take a look at the chassis. And at the risk of sounding like I'm in an infomercial, it's another aspect of the phone that I'm incredibly impressed with. One of my issues with recent iPhone Pro models is the weight. So having a design that's basically a glass sandwich on top and bottom is heavy enough. But to add a chassis that's made of a very heavy stainless steel material, that's just a little bit silly in my eyes. This means that even this smaller iPhone 13 Pro, as we can see, it's a fair bit smaller. It weighs well over 200 grams, which is something that you definitely notice when it's swinging around loosely in your pocket. The Pro Max, which is a similar size to the Motorola, meanwhile, weighs a monstrous 240 grams, and that was one of the reasons why I stayed well clear of that phone. The Motorola Edge 20, on the other hand, how much do you think it weighs? 220 grams? Maybe even 200? Nope, you're wrong, because it just weighs 163 grams. How did they achieve this magic? Well, instead of using stainless steel, they used a far more suitable lightweight aluminium chassis. And the chassis itself is also quite a bit thinner at 7mm in depth instead of 7.6 or something of the iPhone. The back as well is made of a lightweight polycarbonate material that also feels quite a bit like glass, but is less prone to cracking and is lighter too. And this all helps to create a phone that is quite large, but doesn't exactly feel ungainly in the hand. And I can just about use it with one hand, especially when I team it up with a case, which is quite grippy. Looking around the phone now, we have a fingerprint reader located on the power button. It works pretty well and it gives you a nice little vibration when it works. The volume buttons are located above that. It's quite a peculiar location, but I got used to it pretty quickly. And on the other side is a dedicated button for Google Assistant. Inside the phone is a relatively new Snapdragon 778G processor and also a 4000 mAh battery, and together they achieve pretty good battery life. With a thin chassis and the 144Hz display, I was fully expecting this phone not to last a full day, but I found that achieving a full day of heavy usage was something that this phone could very much pull off. And if we flip over to see the back of this phone, it's in the frosted onyx color, which is the only color you can get in Australia. We see the camera array, and wow, what an array this is. I don't feel like I've seen one this prominent since the Droid Razr of quite a few years ago, and inside it we have 3 cameras. It's got a 16 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. It's got an 8 megapixel telephoto and also a 108 megapixel main sensor. And I do have to say that I am generally pretty impressed with the photos. Unlike a lot of other phones with higher megapixel counts, it's actually got a decently large sensor at 1 in 1.52 inches. And either you can sample those photos down to a very clean 12 megapixels, or you can take the image at full resolution. And in bright conditions, those 108 megapixel photos look really good. Like with most phones, including the Pixel and the iPhone 13, there's a little too much sharpening on the 12 megapixel images for my taste, but luckily the 108 megapixel photos look a lot less processed to me. The ultra-wide camera as well also has a macro mode for the first time, which works remarkably well. The camera also has some fun modes, including dual capture, where you take images using both the rear and the front camera, which is 32 megapixels, which is quite impressive. There's also a good portrait mode as well, which works quite well. Overall, the cameras are very impressive, especially for a phone at this price point. But now let's talk about what you are all here for. How was my experience of switching to Android from iOS? Well, I have to say that it's actually been a remarkably positive experience. Not only was it very easy to set up, as Google basically already knows all of my details and everything syncs really well, but the interface is more familiar than I had expected. A lot of you guys know how much I love gesture-based navigation on smartphones ever since using WebOS on the Palm Pre, which I've got over here, and it's great to see that in 2021 that both Android and iOS have both adopted the feature. So on both of these phones, to go back to the home screen, it is the same gesture, just a quick swipe up. And the card-based multitasking is also very similar. Even switching between the apps it uses the identical gesture. It's great to see that smartphone OS design has pretty much converged on what I feel has always been the best solution. But Android 11 on the Edge 20 actually takes it to the next level in a number of ways compared to iOS. Firstly is customization, which is something that Android users have been saying for at least a decade now. I've just had a real new appreciation for it. I've returned it to the default settings right now, but just simple things like putting an icon wherever you want it. On iOS, you can only specifically have it on the top, but I can just move this Reddit icon down there. This is just something that you can't do on iOS, which is a little bit silly. While Apple has very much been adding more ways to customize your iPhone recently, Android is still very much ahead in this regard. Another feature that Android is doing spectacularly well in compared to iOS is multitasking, or more specifically, split screen multitasking. Split screen multitasking is something that I've been using a lot more than I expected. To achieve that on the Edge 20, all you have to do is swipe right and then left immediately. And then you can select your second app. Let's just go with Reddit. And just as easy as that, I have two apps running simultaneously. It's just so cool. With 6.7 inches of real estate, using two apps simultaneously just makes sense. And it's crazy how iOS, especially on the Pro Max, so bigger than this, still doesn't have the feature yet. Another feature that I've really liked is the news feed on the left of the screen. With this, I found that I was far more eager to read news stories on my phone than before, and the algorithm, I think it's Google's algorithm here, just somehow knows precisely what I want to read. For example, 11 awesome sports sedans that we'd love to take for a spin. But these aren't the only cool features that I've been learning to adopt, because Motorola has also got their own suite of features on top of Android that I've also found quite useful. First of all, we have Moto Peak. So that basically previews your notifications when your phone is sleeping. It's a beautifully animated interface, I have to say. Just look at all of that. And we haven't even gotten to my favorite feature yet. And it comes in the form of Motorola's gestures. They include flipping the phone over for Do Not Disturb. So it's on Do Not Disturb now. Another cool one is twisting your wrist twice to open the camera, which is just incredibly convenient. And also two karate chops to turn on the torch. Just like that. While these were introduced back with the Moto X quite a few years ago, I still haven't experienced an easier or more fun way to access the torch or camera than with these Moto gestures. Something that is even more interesting perhaps is Ready For, which is a new feature that's sort of similar in concept to Microsoft's ambitious but ill-fated Continuum. So basically Ready For allows you to do a variety of things. Since I don't have a TV monitor right over here, I've connected it with my computer. Currently it only works with Windows, but I'm told that they're addressing that issue right now. And basically it turns your phone into a full-on desktop experience. For example, this is the new interface that you've got for trackpad and mouse use. And I can just browse Chrome, and I can browse my files and my photos just like I am on a desktop. So basically I've got all of my apps over here, and I am just using it like a desktop. This will be really useful in an office situation, I imagine, where you perhaps might not have a computer, but you do have a monitor and keyboard ready. Another situation that you can do is by connecting it to your television and gaming with the big display and using a controller as well. Something that I haven't tried yet, so let's give it a go, is that if your computer has a terrible webcam like this MacBook over here, you can use your phone as a webcam. So let's just give it a go. For example, over here I am using my phone as a webcam, and it's just working incredibly well. Hi Dennis, how are you? And this is obviously better than the MacBook's webcam, but not as good as our professional cameras over there. I feel like that with Ready For, that we are one step closer to the dream of having just one device that can do literally everything, and the future of Ready For is just very exciting, and it's cool how we've got a taste of it now. So after a couple of weeks of using an Android phone, the Motorola Edge 20, would I recommend it? Well, seeing how far the platform has come over the past 10 years, and how polished and flexible it is, and also how it basically has all of the same apps as an iPhone, I would definitely recommend doing so. And when combined with the hardware of the Edge 20, it really is a great combination. With a great display, smooth performance, a suite of great cameras, and also pretty good battery life at a very attractive price, the Edge 20 is really just an incredible phone, and I can't wait to see what Motorola does next. If you have any further questions about the phone, don't hesitate to comment below. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe. I have linked Motorola's website in the description if you would like to find more about the phone, but until next time, toodaloo.